Hello, everyone. Welcome to our talk around how to see your value chain clearly with Octopus Deploy and Apache DevLake. I'm Denis Jajčević. I'm a principal solution and platform architect at CROZ. And for more than 15 years, I'm doing this part where we actually try to see how to increase and how to improve the value chain in company's organization. So today we'll be talking about a practical demonstration on how to integrate Octopus Deploy deployment data with Apache DevLake that will complete the DORA metrics picture across your delivery value chain. And we'll discover how objective data-driven insights will help you into identify real bottlenecks and drive continuous improvement. So to start off, let's talk about why would somebody use DevLake if Octopus Deploy has its own DORA metrics. So Octopus Deploy tracks DORA metrics from its perspective. The metrics are calculated in real time based on deployment completions. And Octopus does not see incidents happen after a successful deployment, for example. On the other hand, DevLake sees the big picture, consuming information from all sources in the value chain and connecting the dots. With DevLake, we're able to get more precise DORA metrics, analyze cycle time end-to-end, even gather and analyze security and compliance statuses, thus enabling cross-system bottleneck detection. Octopus is essential for operationalizing deployments, but DevLake is essential for understanding the performance. So how does DevLake complete value chain visibility? DevLake is a central part that unifies analytics, connects to various systems, various sources that you have in your platform. One being GitLab that could collect and is collecting actually commits and PRs. The other one is, for example, Jira that collects issues and cycle times. Another one for static code analysis for code quality in CVEs, we maybe use SonarQube as our connection. And we use, and actually DevLake uses pipelines to analyze the build time and the test execution time. But also, most importantly, we missed the part where we used Octopus Deploy for managing deployments. Then we use that data, ingest it into DevLake to complete the whole picture. So what is actually Apache DevLake? Now that we see that there is a value of using something like DevLake, let's talk about what it is. DevLake is an open source development data platform, providing the data infrastructure for developers team to analyze and improve their engineering productivity. They're exiting or near exiting the incubation phase. So from the picture, you can see that you can, including just DORA metrics, you could also analyze the engineering metrics that have and various data that you gather from the connections already built in. Who benefits from Apache DevLake? For one, engineering leads helps them to understand project health and trends. Development teams, it helps them to identify bottlenecks and slow-moving work. Like, for example, if we have more incoming tasks than we are finishing. Infrastructure teams, it can help them, especially when infrastructure changes are managed via tickets or infrastructure as a code. For platform teams, it does support a product mindset with measurable metrics. And of course, not to forget the governance and compliance officers. It enables them to track the resolution time of any related issues to governance. So essentially, anyone who's looking to make better sense of the value chain and to use data-driven approach in these practices. The concept around DevLake is very simple and extensible. DevLake supports many data sources like GitHub, Jira, Jenkins, SonarQube, DApp, and many more. The flow is that using those in connection points, those plugins, data is fetched, transformed, and pushed down to other framework parts that analyze, calculate DORA metrics, for example, and store that in a common model inside of a database. All data is visualized via Grafana dashboards querying the database. So how to get increased visibility from zero to hero, so to speak? So first of all, you need to set up a DevLake. You can install it via Docker Compose or Helm, be it on any Kubernetes platform. Create a blueprint, configure it through a UI, connect projects to one, and track the progress of that blueprint. Now, the obvious next step would be to view the pre-built dashboard, explore wherever it is happening, discover bottlenecks, even discover what you thought you understand that is probably a different situation. And then, of course, since we're using Grafana and have a database as a source, we could build our custom dashboards using that. How to use, and let's get a little bit acquainted with Apache's DevLake UI. So we've talked a little bit about projects. So projects are grouping multiple data scopes under one umbrella. We've shown those 5 data sources DevLake can use. So for this example, we can have source code management, PR reviews from GitLab, and watch the tickets also from the GitLab. But also, we could have webhooks to gather information around deployments. But if we, for example, have another project that uses Jira for its issue management or project tracking, we can connect just that project with that Jira under one umbrella and get the metrics for that project under the same data format. Pipelines are auto-generated depending on your connections, on your data sources, and enabled functionalities. For example, DORA metrics is one functionality that you can enable or disable to calculate. So it actually does gather information from various your connection points for your selected project, so it's scoped. And depending on the plugin, it is incremental. And then using that data, raw data, extracting critical or important information and transforming it to common data model that's able to browse, to explore via Grafana dashboards. Next up, we have webhooks for data sources that are not covered by built-in plugins. And this is where Octopus connects. This is how we register our Octopus deployment to the DevLake project. One highlight worth mentioning, and definitely I would say that this is one of the greatest documentation that I've ever seen, is DevLake's comprehensive documentation on all available metrics. And in that documentation, you find out how that metric is calculated, why it may be important for you, and if you want to focus on it, how to improve it. With also a list of required data sources and a list of dashboards that metric can be seen. As we mentioned earlier, all visualization is done via Grafana. So for one example, we can have a DORA metrics dashboard that shows these 4 key metrics in one dashboard filtered by projects, where you can see if there are any outliers in your current situation. One example of detailing those key metrics is another detailed dashboard for failed deployment recovery time, where we can see how much we are spending, or how long do we need in order to fix a failed deployment. There's also a DORA details change failure rate dashboard that we can see if there are any incidents correlated with any other deployments, and then we can drill down to see if we're having too much incidents or we are having too much deployments that are failing their customers. Of course, since we use Grafana and we have database as a source, we could build up our custom dashboards. For example, this dashboard shows how to query tickets or issues or incidents that we have in our database, in our DevLake database, and get a better sense of that data with what we need. So how this whole concept we've made looks like. So how it works when DevLake meets Octopus Deploy. So in the middle, like we've seen in the first picture, we have Octopus Deploy. It's our continuous deployment tool. When developer commits some code on a GitLab, for example, it triggers a pipeline, it builds, it tests, and it also initiates a release on Octopus Deploy. What that release triggers then is various checks. For example, we can run assurance policy checks using an ape. And then user manually needs to approve upon a failed assurance policy check. Then, if everything is okay and that deploy has a green light to be deployed to the target runtime, upon deployment, we register our results to DevLake, including starting the blueprint to recalculate the information. That all registering, deployment, and triggering is done via process step on Octopus Deploy. Worth noting that when I mentioned Octopus Deploy assurance policy checks, we've implemented with a tool called Nape. After me, there's my colleague Bernard Hopfmüller, who is going to be talking about how to automate governance on Octopus Deploy. And now, the demo time. Let's see how it all works. First of all, we're going to explore a project that's already on Octopus Deploy. It's process. So let's open a project, then go to process and investigate what do we have at the moment. From the picture we saw before, what we have is those assurance automated checks, automated governance assurance checks. Then we have the manual approval that happens if those checks fail, relieving the manual toil from the people who need to approve if there are any issues, and relieving them from manual checks. Then we do a deployment that can be successful or not. And then what we do is register our DevLake deployment. Well, now when we create a release, deploy production, of course, it's worth mentioning for this demo, we've skipped all the previous environments and going directly to production just for this demo. So after the automated governance step, when we see that everything is A-OK, we perform a dummy deployment and then register deployment to Octopus Deploy. I'll skip the parts that you're going to see on Bernie's talk and go to the part where we visualize the data on the DevLake. So this is the same step that we've seen before. When we deploy and we register the deployment, we can see in this DevLake's UI that we've triggered the last, it's a 50, the pipeline that's going to collect, and it is collecting the data from GitLab. It's collecting data for source code, so for PRs, for commits, for pull, so the review of the code, but also since it's configured to collect issues from a separate GitLab project, we collect CVEs from those and use it as an incident reporting tool to actually demonstrate the CVE GRC resolution time and to present it on Grafana. This pipeline, what it also does is after collecting that data, it calculates the DORA metrics and presents it in that common model in a database. And when it's finished, it takes a little bit. Finished. When we go to Grafana dashboard, we can see that our value change depending on what happened to the deployment. And also we have a dashboard that says, okay, you have this amount of open CVEs, this amount of open GRCs, and how much time. Of course, this is all demonstrated stuff, so it's not the real case. Real case data. It's just to demonstrate the possibilities of the Apache DevLake. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. So to wrap up things, we saw that Apache DevLake is a really powerful and open source tool for data-driven value chain insights. It enables us to collect various different connections and data sources under one project and treat that one project as a one unit to calculate DORA metrics, engineering overview, and even the CVE resolution time. That enables us in our diverge ecosystem where we have multiple tools. For example, if there are some projects that use Jira, there are some projects that use GitLab's ticketing system or GitHub, we can use and connect all of those data to one place. Of course, the missing part when we have Octopus Deploy as our continuous deployment tool is that we miss that deployment part from Octopus. And Octopus and DevLake together help you to see that value. So when we integrate the Octopus Deploy with webhooks, we are understanding that value chain more clear. We have better value or better understanding in the when decrypting the bottlenecks, when some deployment has actually been a deployment that caused several incidents on the client side. And this data-driven approach enables us to, with actual great open source tool to visualize that data, create alerts maybe, to have a more in-depth analysis into how our value chain works and if we're satisfied where it is going. Of course, we've talked about governance and resolution time around CVEs or GRCs. After me, like I said, there's my colleague Bernhard that will talk about how we did automate that stuff inside the Octopus Deploy process and how we can actually relieve the GRC officer's value or just help automate stuff on the governance side. So once again, thank you for joining and seeing how you can see your value chain clearly with Octopus Deploy and Apache DevLake.